My name is Xavier Perry, and happy Black History Month. Today we have
Divine. I'm a senior. I've been in the BSU for 2 years.
My name is Miss Finley, or Senorita by some others. I am a Spanish teacher at the high school, as well as the advisor for the Black Student Union. I'm also on the committee for the Diversity and Equity Council. So I'm excited to have this conversation with some students on their experience as a Black student in Fox Chapel area.
Yes, we're really excited to dive into some topics and just questions about what it means to be Black and what Black History Month means to us and what it means in this country.
This is one of the first times where I have taught at a predominantly white institution where I am having conversations like this with students. So I think this is a blessing for me because this is something that I wish I could have had when I was at a PWI when I was growing up.
I'm so grateful for you to be here because I'm assuming me and Divine have had similar experiences where we don't get a lot of Black educators. And even though I'm not in your Spanish class, I still feel very comfortable in the school knowing that you are here and that there's someone who looks like me in the building who I could talk to and have these conversations with.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I came to the middle school, I should say, from an international school in Thailand, and there was a lot more diversity. So coming from that kind of school to coming to Fox Chapel, where there weren't any people of color that I saw personally, it made me a bit uncomfortable. And I just remember hearing that you were coming to the school and you were going to be, helping with the BSU and the Diversity Council. And I remember how happy I was to hear something like that because it's something that's very long overdue, and I'm glad that the school and you are taking action to make students more comfortable.
Y'all might be too young. Y'all know the show Girlfriends? It's on Netflix. Okay, anyway, when I was in high school, that show was popular. There's a clip in there where one of the characters, he's a lawyer and a senior partner, and he is the only Black male senior partner and one of the few Black male lawyers on the firm. And in the scene, it shows him with his boss, the other senior partner, at a sports bar. And at the sports bar, the lawyer has all his friends who are predominantly Black and his boss, who's a white guy.
Hey, William, Darnell, Peanut, and M. Hey, I just want to thank you for including me in your little Sunday sports soiree, and I'll have you know that I don't feel at all uncomfortable being the only white person up in here. Okay, well, a little uncomfortable. Hey, now we know how you feel at the law firm, Dan. Not that anything's going to change.
He kind of touched on something that's very true. Like in a humorous way, they touched on the fact that oftentimes in certain levels of career fields, you start to look around and notice there's less people like you. I'll say this as an educator. One of the things I notice in certain school districts across the country, no particular one, when students of color kind of go forward in, let's say, math or science or English, and they get to the upper levels, there's less students of color and they're more of the minority, and that level of discomfort kind of increases because you realize you're the only Black AP student in that class, or you're the only Black student or person of color in that upper level class. And then I will say sometimes you don't even get that opportunity, but that's a whole other topic that I could touch on.
Because I went to an all-white school. Like I was the only Black kid it was a private school out in Ligonier. And when I came here and then I saw that I could see at least one or two Black kids, I was like, yes, diversity. And so that for me was like a moment where I was like, oh my God, like I can make Black friends. Like that's cool to me. But like as I've gone through the high school, the reality kicked in and I was like, there's still not that many around, and especially in the field that I'm interested in music, like I'm usually the only Black kid in choir or musical and stuff like that, and how to navigate what we're doing, especially if we're doing a song that might be a Negro spiritual or that's a song that's traditionally sung in like a Black church, and something where I'm like, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that in a choir of predominantly white students where I feel sort of alienated as like just the one person being looked at because this is part of my culture.
why is Black History Month important, or what does it mean to celebrate Black History Month, and how do you celebrate it?
I've heard a lot of arguments about if Black people are to have their own month, then shouldn't everyone else have their own? And I often say that Black History Month is to celebrate what hasn't been celebrated before, I guess. I think in the past it wasn't as encouraged as much for Black people to celebrate their own culture and appreciate where they came from and their roots and their ancestors. And I think that singling out a single month to celebrate so many like Black creators is just what is needed to promote the love of yourself and your own culture.
I think for me, I try to remind myself that, like, you know, I can celebrate my Blackness every day. You know, I'm just extra Black on Black History Month, as you can tell. But you know, Divine, I really like that way that you explained it, because I think it kind of really hits home. One month isn't enough, but that month is a great start for people to understand this is something that needs to be celebrated every day, not just 1 month out of the year. Like, oh, hey, remember us, guys?
I agree with you, Miss Finley. Like, Divine had it right on the nail. I remember like being in like 7th grade and walking through my all-white school, and I would, after like an incident, a racial incident that happened, and I remember I have to walk through the hallway, and I would look at my hands just to remind myself who I am in this space, you know, and it was taxing to be like every day walk through and be like, oh wait, I'm Black, when I'm constantly surrounded by white people. And not that it's a bad thing, but it was hard to, you know, feel connected to who I was as a Black man. And I think Black History Month for me, it definitely it reminds me and allows me to remember that I am beautiful and that my skin tone is mine, and that who I am is enough. And, you know, I remember like watching Roots as a kid with my mom. Like I sort of I watched that at like 7. My mom was ready, and I loved it. I loved that series. We watched it for years. And I just enjoyed learning and being like, yes, and feeling empowered by that story. Whereas in other areas, I wasn't able to see that around me, whether it was in media or just the people I hung around and whatnot. All of my friends were white. All of my teachers were, and it was hard to feel comfortable even like talking about Black History Month and feeling comfortable with other people talking about it, you know, as if it was theirs or that, like, it was very uncomfortable to be in that space and learn about it when I felt like everyone was looking at me. But Black History Month kind of reminds me to like, yeah, you should look at me and you should embrace who I am and love who I am, because I am beautiful no matter what skin tone I have, no matter what color eyes I have.
That one makes me think of the next question that we have is, what is your favorite thing about being Black? Like, I'll say for me, one of my favorite things about being a Black woman is that our beauty is seen differently because we are built differently. And I will say, to some extent, on the vanity side, like, there's certain features of Black women, if you know what I'm talking about, how a lot of people try to achieve that aesthetic. So there's a level of like, of course we're beautiful. Like, people get tans. People get enhancements.
Yeah.
Like, those are the obvious reasons why I think I'm beautiful. Like, if you're trying to assimilate to look a certain way, then that must clearly mean I'm beautiful. But on the flip side, there's that piece where, and I always say there's a pros and a cons. So I'm not trying to say that this is part is like, I don't think my Black is beautiful, but I'm saying that it is a little bit saddening to know that Black is beautiful is only beautiful when it's not on a Black person. But it still reminds me that you still think I'm beautiful, despite the fact that it's being utilized only as an advantage when you're not a person of color. So like, all of a sudden these features, you know, fuller lips, you know, a larger backside, like, okay, so it's beautiful on, you know, this type of female, But on me, it's just interesting. But I just love the fact that we're seen as beautiful. Like our skin, like it's so many different shades. Like I love it when I go to the beach and I get my bronze on. Oh my God. I just love how I look. Like that's probably my favorite thing about like blackness and black beauty, and why, like my favorite thing about being black. It's like, I'm beautiful. That's a little vain, I know, but it's just like, that's my favorite part about being black, is that I'm pretty.
As you should, as you should.
Honestly, yeah. I remember similarly when I grew up, I went to a private Christian school all throughout elementary school, and I remember when I first realized that color was a thing and that I didn't like look the same as the people I hung out with. I used to be really insecure about that. I used to wish that I was lighter so that people might like me. When I got really to high school and I realized that, you know, I am beautiful and that features like mine are things that people want, I was just it made me a lot happier, but also just about being black. I appreciate, you know, the the connection I can make with other people simply based off of the fact that we are black, and it's, you know, I can talk to someone in the school who, you know, who's the same color as me, and we'll understand each other's struggle, and I can go out and relate to people and all kinds of things like that. I think there's it's really beautiful to connect with someone, you know, just call them, you know, brother or sister, and we understand what each other is going through.
No, I agree. I love the language in which we use language to communicate with one another. It just is so joyful and fun, and makes me feel a part of something and feel as black as possible. Like, like it's just the greatest thing. Like when I'm in my house with my mom and we're just like jamming out and she's singing, even though she doesn't really think she's a good singer, I'll like throw a shoe. And we know that that means like, yes, that was on stage. Love it. And I just think that's beautiful. And one of my favorite things, similar to what Divine was saying about being black, is I love like walking anywhere, going out, and I can see another black man, older, younger, and I can just go, and that's it.
The head
It's
nod.
the head nod. It's everything to me because I was super insecure about being like black, and I was like, oh, this feels wrong, and like because of everyone that's around me, and to just be able to like have that communication with someone, and it be quick and simple is like beautiful and exciting for me. Because I feel like I'm making a connection with other black people that I never had before, that I felt was foreign to me, I didn't belong to, and that I can access that now, and be proud of it makes me like so happy all the time.
One of my favorite quotes from James Baldwin, and I don't know if you ever read his book, I'm Not Your Negro, or watched the documentary, but it's just a beautiful quote to me because it really does demonstrate the fact that as Black Americans, and even though we've been told, you know, go back to Africa, which doesn't make any sense, but, you know, certain comments that are said about like us being Americans, and it's kind of like, we are the true Americans. We really are. We built America. Okay. We're celebrated in some ways that may not be the most honorable, like through sports and music, but we are American. And for that, he says, I love her so much, for that I must criticize her. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I love that because I do love our country. And for that, I will criticize her. I will tell her when she's not doing right. I will tell her when she's out of line, and I will educate her. At least that's my perspective on like celebrating Blackness, celebrating Black History Month, celebrating Black history in general, because as you guys already know, Black history is American history. You know, it's not just something that started in 1960s with MLK, or when slavery started and ended. I definitely think we need to kind of learn from our mistakes as far as how we educate, not just our students of color, but all of our students when it comes to Black history. I think we've done a poor job as an education system in regards to how we do that. You know, we shouldn't have to have an African-American school in the city. I don't know if you know the one that's in the Hill, not the Hill District. Yeah, it's in the Hill District. Like, to celebrate that. I think there's a charter school too in East Liberty. I mean, there's a lot of schools that we have like an African American centered focus, even private schools. But it's like, for me, I'm glad we have them. But what's frustrating is the fact we have to have them. You know what I mean? Just like HBCUs, I'm so blessed that we have them. But the fact that we have to have them, you know, like, America, get it together.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I feel like I wish I didn't have to be the focus of an entire room because of the way I look. Like, why couldn't we all just see each other and move past that with all of this tension behind it?
Or see it but celebrate it. Like, I think for me it's the visibility. And I feel like we're visible and invisible at the same time. Like, I feel like being Black is sometimes a walking contradiction. I'm visibly seen as Black, right? But I'm invisible because I don't look like everybody else, if that makes sense. So it's like this weird duality of like, I'm invisible, but yet visible, but I'm only visible when it's convenient to be visible. And outside of that convenience, I am completely invisible. You know, just it's a beautiful thing to be Black, but it's also that, do you actually see me being Black? What do you see? Like, how do you see me? What are your thoughts? What are your expectations? And I'm not talking to you and Divine, Xavier, just for so, you know, in general, when we're in certain spaces, and it's just kind of like, do you see me? And when you see me, is it just that I'm Black? And then I think that's when you feel that uncomfortability, that discomfort, that otherness. Like, it's not like you're saying, like, Xavier, where you're kind of like highlighting and celebrating diversity. It's more of an otherness. And I think that's another thing that we as an education system need to rectify, that we need to celebrate and highlight and stay away from certain terms like, oh, that's weird, when we're talking about another culture. Like, no, that's different. Because that's the whole point of things being weird. Weird means strange or foreign to you, as it should be. But it shouldn't be something that has a negative connotation. It should be, that's weird, as in, I like seeing this, that's different, or I can appreciate this thing that I'm seeing that's different than what I have, or what I am, or what I do.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, it is time to be done, but I think that's a beautiful like topic to end on, and a question for people who are watching to really think about. And I'm so grateful to have talked to both of you about this. This has been like such an awesome experience and healing for me as well.
Same. I wish we could have done this in person, because I would have had some fire to share. Just